How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Mr. Donahue here again. This time we're going to take a look at percent yield. Basically, how good of a chemist are you? So our objectives will be to determine the percent yield for chemical reactions, and that's simply it. So let's talk about percent yield. Well, in practice, you seldom achieve 100% of what your theoretical yield should be, because just like grilling, maybe you dropped a hamburger, maybe a hot dog got away from you. You couldn't make everything that you should have been able to based on what you started with. All right, so percent yield is a way of expressing what percentage of your theoretical yield was obtained. So if you could have made 100 hot dogs, but you dropped 2 of them and you only made 98, then your percent yield would be 98%. So the percent yield is going to be your actual yield divided by your theoretical yield times 100. So what you actually made over what you should have been able to make times 100. So simple problem. What is the percent yield if a chemical reaction produced 1,435 grams of product, and the theoretical yield was 1,800 grams? Well, all you got to do there is go, what was your actual? So actual over the theoretical yield times by 100. So I plug that in. My actual was 1,435 grams over 1,800 grams times by 100. All right, the grams cancels out and we get a percentage, and when you plug and chug that in, you get 79.7% as your percent yield. All right, so you could have made more, you made 79.7% of what you could have made. So let's take a look at this example. It says 27 grams of nitrogen is reacted with 15.5 grams of hydrogen, producing 29.8 grams of NH3. What is the percent yield? Well, again, I know that the percent yield is going to equal my actual over my theoretical yield times by 100. They give me my actual is 29.8 grams, so check, I got that, but I got to figure out what my theoretical yield is. So in order to figure that out, first thing I need to do is figure out what is my limiting reactant. And once I have my limiting reactant, then I can get my theoretical yield. So how do I figure out my limiting reactant? Well, I start with the grams of everything that I have, and I got to convert that into moles, right? So I look at my reactants, 27.0 grams of N2. I divide that by its formula mass, which is 28.02, and I get a mole of 0.964 moles of N2. I do the same process for H2, except H2's formula weight is 2.02. So I divide by that, and I get 7.67 moles of H2. So now to figure out the limiting reactant, I got to look at my mole ratio from the problem. So N2 to H2 for my reactants has a 1 to 3 ratio, right? The N2 is 1, the H2 is 3. So I go, all right, and now I just pick one of them. I'm going to go with 0.964 just because is to X. So if I reacted all of that nitrogen, how much hydrogen would I need? So I can cross multiply and divide, and I get X equals 2.89. So I need 2.89 moles of H2. I have 7.67. So that tells me I have extra H2, which means I must run out of N2. So my N2 is my limiting reactant. So my limiting reactant is N2, which means I'm going to use all of N2's math to figure out how much I could make. So now next part is I'm going to figure out my theoretical yield. So I go, all right, well, if I'm using N2, I got to use my N2 to my product ratio. My product is NH3. So that's a 1 to 2 ratio. So how much N2 do I start with? 0.964, and it's all going to get used up. So how much NH3 could I make? Well, you can cross multiply and divide, and I get X to equal, where is it? 1.928 moles of NH3. So now what I want to do is, because they give me the amount, my actual in grams, I want to convert this moles of NH3 to grams. So I got to times that by the GFM of NH3, which is 17.04, and I get a total grams of 32.9 grams of NH3. So that is my theoretical yield, right? So this is my theoretical yield. So the last step is just figure out the percent yield. So to do that, I put my actual, which is at 29.8 grams, over what I should have been able to make, which is 32.9 grams. I should have been able to make that much, but it couldn't. And then I times that by 100. So I get a final answer of 90.6%. So that is my theoretical yield. If you ever get a percent yield of greater than 100, you did something wrong. It's saying you made more than you should have been able to make. Check your math, okay? If you ever get a percent over 100, look at your math. You might have goofed somewhere. All right? So yeah, I did all that. So summarize. How do you determine what the percent yield is? That's the big point of this, okay? How do you figure out percent yield? And that's everything. That is everything. Hope you found that helpful. I'll see you in class. Bring questions.